Hey there, sleepyheads, and welcome back to Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, as the world outside begins to quiet down and the gentle hum of your fan, or perhaps the distant patter of rain lulls you into a state of calm, we're going to embark on a journey that, while historically significant, promises to be as soothing as the deep, dark ocean itself. We're drifting back to the year 1943 to a vast churning expanse of water, where the very survival of a global war hinged on unseen battles and unwavering endurance the North Atlantic. Allow your mind to softly drift as we journey back to a time when the horizon held both hope and terrifying uncertainty to the heart of a silent war fought in the most unforgiving theatre. You find yourself in the North Atlantic in 1943, a name that echoes with a kind of stark, brutal poetry. This wasn't a place of strategic manoeuvres painted on maps in distant war rooms. It was a theatre of relentless, unforgiving combat, where every wave felt like a punch, and every gust of wind carried the chill of dread. Here, massive convoys of merchant ships laden with the vital lifeblood of the war effort served as the perilous lifelines connecting America to the embattled shores of Europe. You're a part of this colossal, slow-moving ballet, a tiny cog in an immense machine tasked with protecting these floating warehouses against an invisible, deadly foe. The sheer scale of it all is almost incomprehensible, stretching for miles across the grey, turbulent waters, and you, an American sailor, are right in the thick of it, far from the sun-drenched beaches or bustling cities you once called home. This vast expanse of water is anything but a tropical paradise. Those who knew it best often described it as colder than outer space and a lot more personal, a sentiment you quickly come to understand. The cold isn't just a number on a thermometer, it's a living, breathing entity that claws at your skin, seeps into your bones and whispers promises of hypothermia. This constant, pervasive chill transforms the North Atlantic into a psychological crucible, a forge where the very definition of endurance is hammered and reshaped. For you and for every US Navy sailor on these escort ships, the mental toll is as significant as the physical as you battle not just the enemy, but the environment itself and the gnawing anxieties it breeds. Every creak of the hull, every whisper of the wind through the rigging, every distant shimmer on the wave tops could signal imminent danger, turning the mundane into the potentially catastrophic. You exist amidst the immutable systemic conditions of global conflict, a cog in a machine far larger than yourself, bound by orders and a purpose that transcends individual will. And hovering over it all, a constant chilling shadow is the German U-boat. These unseen predators transform your daily existence into a minute-by-minute struggle, demanding a redefinition of what you thought endurance meant. You're constantly battling against physical decay, the cold, the damp, the lack of proper sustenance, and perhaps even more insidiously psychological decay. The relentless grind, the pervasive fear, the monotony punctuated by terror slowly erodes at your sense of self, blurring the lines between waking and dreaming safety and peril, much like the ceaseless grey of the sky merges with the grey of the ocean. This isn't a story of grand battles or heroic charges, but a deep dive into the raw personal realities of life aboard an escort ship. You live in a world where every familiar sound of the ship, that constant mechanical groan and shudder, is now filtered through a lens of potential threat. Every new gust of wind isn't just weather, it's a potential harbinger of an unseen enemy, a shift in the sea that could reveal a periscope or the telltale wake of a torpedo. In this brutal, unpredictable environment, you're forced to confront your own fragility, your limited control, and the thin, tenuous thread upon which your survival and the success of the entire war effort precariously hangs. You're adrift not just on the ocean, but on the very edge of human endurance, a silent sentinel in a world defined by the deep. Delving deeper into your daily existence, beyond the strategic overview, you plunge into the tangible, sensory-rich realities of a sailor's day. It's a relentless cycle of discomfort, vigilance, and quiet despair set against the vast indifferent backdrop of the North Atlantic. You quickly realise that the true war isn't just fought in moments of explosive violence, but in the long drawn-out hours of waiting, of enduring, of simply existing in conditions designed to test the very limits of human resilience. Every fibre of your being is engaged in a constant low-level battle against the environment and the pervasive sense of dread that permeates the thick, salty air. This isn't just a job. It's an all-encompassing way of life, or rather a way of survival where your entire existence is pared down to its most basic, most primal elements, much like a bone stripped clean by the elements. You wake in near total darkness, a darkness so thick and wet with cold that it feels almost suffocating, clinging to you like a damp shroud. Your hammock, a flimsy canvas sling, creaks in rhythm, with the ceaseless Atlantic swells a lullaby of discomfort that has long since lost any soothing quality. The initial moments of consciousness are always marked by the profound chill that penetrates through layers of bedding seeping into your muscles, making every movement a stiff, uncomfortable effort. You shiver not just from the cold, but from the realization that another day has dawned in this floating prison, another cycle of vigilance and discomfort stretching out before you. There's no gentle waking here, no slow transition from sleep to awareness. It's an abrupt, often jarring return to the grim reality of your surroundings, a swift re-entry into the cold embrace of the ocean's will. The ship's interior is a rattling maze of pipes and low ceilings, a constant symphony of metallic groans, clangs, and the ceaseless thrum of the engines. This isn't a comforting sound. It's an unsettling, pervasive noise that, as you've come to notice, settles into your teeth, vibrating through your very bones. It's a hum that prevents true rest, a constant reminder of the mechanical beast you inhabit, forever churning through the hostile waters. You learn to filter it out to some extent, but it's always there, a low-frequency anxiety that never quite fades, like a persistent, unwelcome whisper in the back of your mind. Every surface, from the cold, sweating pipes that crisscross above your head, to the metal walls and even the canvas of your bunk, weeps condensation. This contributes to an inescapable dampness that permeates everything: your clothing, your personal belongings, even the air you breathe. Dry warmth becomes a fleeting, almost mythical luxury, something you dream of but rarely experience, leaving you in a perpetual state of clammy discomfort, a constant battle against the encroaching chill. The space below deck where you eat, sleep, and try to find some semblance of privacy is perpetually cramped. It smells of damp wool, stale tobacco, and the ever-present mechanical grease that seems to seep from every seam and rivet of the ship. It's a scent that seeps into your clothes and settles into your skin, making you feel like an extension of the vessel itself, a living, breathing part of its grimy, metallic reality. You can almost taste the lingering staleness, a flavour that never quite leaves your tongue. Attempts at rest are often futile, not just because of the noise and damp, but because the ship's lights flicker on unexpectedly, or alarms ring out at odd hours, jolting you awake with a surge of adrenaline. Even when quiet descends, your mind races, haunted by the ticking reminder of the freezing water below the vast black abyss that promises swift, brutal oblivion. This ensures your body never fully relaxes, trapped in a constant state of low-level alert, even in the depths of supposed sleep, like a spring always wound too tight. You find yourself sleeping, fully dressed, boots on helmet, nearby a visible manifestation of this constant state of readiness. There is no true peace, no real security to be found here. Such luxuries belong to another world, another time. You've long since abandoned the notion of stripping down for bed, knowing that at any moment the klaxons could scream, sending you scrambling to your battle station. Your uniform, your boots, your helmet. They are not just clothes or gear. They are an extension of your preparedness. A thin barrier between you and the chaos that could erupt at any second. This ritual, this constant state of being poised on the brink, highlights the profound absence of genuine tranquility, the understanding that your life at sea is not truly your own to command. The North Atlantic dictates the terms, and you, the sailor, must simply comply, perpetually ready for the call to action. However unwelcome, always alert for the next chapter of this endless vigil. Delving deeper into your daily existence, the routine of sustenance quickly reveals itself as another unrelenting grind, a bleak testament to scarcity and monotony. You're quickly disabused of any romantic notions of hearty sailor's fare. Meals, you quickly learn, are less about culinary delight and more about caloric duty. Those powdered eggs, you'd swear they were designed by an industrial adhesive manufacturer clinging to the plate, tasting faintly of sulphur, and regret a texture simultaneously rubbery and grainy. And the bacon was so thin it could easily double as a bookmark, if you had a book and the energy to read it. These meagre offerings provide little comfort or nutritional value, etching themselves into your memory as sensory imprints of your current unglamorous reality. Food like the thin brown soup you're often served tastes primarily of hot dishwater, seasoned with a memory of beef. It's a flavour so dilute, so lacking in substance, that you sometimes wonder if the cook has simply waved a beef bone over a pot of boiling water and called it a day. Yet you consume it gratefully, not for hunger in the traditional sense, though you're often profoundly hungry, but as a necessary ritual. It's a source of fleeting warmth against the pervasive cold that seems to find its way into your very marrow, a brief reprieve from the chill that defines your every waking moment. The act of eating even this uninspiring fare becomes a small anchor in the monotonous cold existence, a moment of shared if silent humanity, with your shipmates, a small ritual in a world that often lacks meaning. The constant anxiety, the relentless vigilance, the ever-present shadow of the U-boat manifests itself in physical symptoms. You feel your stomach twisting itself into knots, a tight, uncomfortable ball of nerves that often makes the thought of even warm canned beans nauseating. The very idea of forcing down the bland, unappetizing food can be too much to bear, often resulting in skipped meals. You try to eat. You know you should eat, but sometimes the stress overrides even the most basic physiological demands. The thought of adding another layer of discomfort to your already agitated system is simply too much to contemplate. Your appetite, like so much else, falls victim to the pervasive dread. In this world of deprivation, lukewarm coffee becomes a highly sought-after commodity. It tastes faintly of rust or radiator water, a metallic tang that never quite leaves your mouth, but its meagre warmth provides a brief vital reprieve. It's an anchor, a small luxury that offers a moment of illusionary comfort, a tiny pocket of internal heat against the biting external cold. You clutch the tin cup, feeling the warmth seep into your chilled hands, a small blessing in an otherwise bleak landscape. This isn't just a beverage, it's a symbol of hope, a momentary escape from the relentless chill and the pervasive monotony, a silent promise of human endurance. Gallows humour surrounding meals is common a coping mechanism as essential as the rations themselves. You hear grim jokes such as offering a last meal chocolate bar, a rarity indeed, or dark jests about the sharks waiting below eager for a different kind of meal. These morbid jokes highlight the ever-present fatalism, the resigned acceptance of your precarious situation, but they are also mixed with a primal need for human connection, a way to acknowledge the grim reality while simultaneously pushing it away with a shared laugh, however strained. It's a way of saying, we're all in this together, facing the same impossible odds. A morbid camaraderie. The act of eating ultimately is less about enjoyment and more about conformity and survival. You eat because that's what everyone else is doing, a silent rule that governs much of your life aboard ship. You quickly understand that standing out gets you noticed, and getting noticed bad. There's a quiet consensus and unspoken understanding that blending in, adhering to the routine, even the most unpalatable parts of it, is a form of protection. It's about not drawing attention to yourself, not appearing weak or particular, simply being another face in the grim determined crowd, another anonymous cog in the machine. Your personal preferences are a luxury you can ill afford in this theatre of perpetual grimness, where every action, even the most mundane, is a subtle battle for survival. The relentless battle against the elements extends far beyond your sleeping and eating quarters, manifesting most acutely in the losing fight for personal hygiene and comfort. You quickly discover that despite your best efforts, your wool peacoat, your constant companion, your shield against the Atlantic's fury, perpetually smells of salt and stale sweat. It's a pervasive scent, a composite of your own efforts, the sea's unforgiving spray, and the recycled air below deck, a smell that becomes inextricably linked to your very identity at sea. This scent isn't just an inconvenience. It's a constant olfactory reminder of the futility of maintaining true freshness, a testament to the inescapable dampness that permeates every fibre of your being and your clothing. You try to air it out, you try to keep clean, but the environment conspires against you at every turn, ensuring that true cleanliness remains an elusive, almost forgotten memory, like a ghost of comfort from a distant past. Stepping onto the deck, especially during a watch or a change of shift, is always a shock, a full-body assault. The cold punches you in the teeth, an immediate visceral impact that makes you gasp. Your eyes instantly water, not just from the wind, but from the sheer biting intensity of the cold. These tears, as you learn with a morbid fascination, freeze to your cheekbones, almost instantly forming tiny icy tracks that prickle and sting. And your breath. It fogs, so thick it looks like smoke, billowing out in dense white clouds with every exhalation, a vivid visual manifestation of the extreme conditions you're forced to endure. It's a surreal experience watching your very life force materialize and then dissipate into the frigid air, a constant reminder of how vulnerable you are in this immense hostile environment, a fleeting sign of your own warmth vanishing. The layers of wool clothing painstakingly donned each morning to ward off the chill quickly become soaked. Whether it's from the relentless sea spray, the driving rain, or the ever-present condensation that seems to drip from every surface, your garments turn into stiff salted shells. They feel like rationed beef jerky, abrasive against your skin, heavy and unyielding. The hope of finding dry warmth, that elusive comfort, becomes a desperate, almost mythical luxury, something whispered about in hushed tones, a fantasy to cling to during the long frigid watches. Your clothes, once a source of protection, now feel like a second skin of discomfort, always damp, always cold, always slightly chafing, a constant irritating burden. Your fingers and toes, despite gloves and thick socks, remain in a constant state of discomfort. They are perpetually red cracked from the exposure to salt and cold and often numb. You look at them, and sometimes they feel like someone else's, or brittle wood under your gloves' detached appendages that barely respond to your will. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a continuous battle against frostbite, a draining, energy-sapping cold that demands your constant attention and vigilance. You rub them, blow on them, try to stamp life back into them, but the warmth is always fleeting, the numbness always threatening to return. They are a constant, painful reminder of the environment's relentless assault on your body. The mundane yet constant act of stripping off your boots to dump out seawater, or wringing out your gloves, becomes a daily resigned ritual. It's an almost meditative act of surrender to the elements. The cold water drips onto the metal floor with a sad little splash, a sound that echoes the quiet despair in your heart. There's no anger, no frustration left for this, only a weary acceptance of the endless, thankless tasks required just to maintain a basic level of functionality. You go through the motions knowing that tomorrow, or perhaps even in a few hours, you'll be doing it all again. It's a small, intimate moment of human vulnerability in the face of nature's overwhelming power, a quiet acknowledgement of your insignificance in the grand scheme of the North Atlantic. This constant struggle against the cold and damp shapes not just your body, but your very spirit, slowly etching its mark on your resolve like erosion on stone. As your physical discomfort becomes a constant, almost unnoticed background hum, your daily labour and responsibilities rise to the forefront, forming the relentless grind of ceaseless vigilance. Watch duty, perhaps more than any other task, encapsulates this. It's a mind-numbing vigil, hours spent just watching, listening, trying not to freeze solid while scanning for the shimmer of a periscope or the flash of a torpedo's wake. You stand there, a solitary figure against the vast dark expanse, your eyes straining your ears, perpetually tuned to the subtle symphony of the ocean and the ship. It's a monotonous yet high-stakes task that seems to freeze time itself. Every minute stretches, every shadow plays tricks, and the sheer emptiness of the horizon can be as terrifying as a confirmed sighting. The weight of responsibility presses down on you, knowing that a single lapse in concentration could spell disaster for hundreds. Physically demanding tasks are woven into the fabric of your day, made infinitely harder by the ship's constant violent movements. Handling thick, salt-stiffened ropes, adjusting the ship's position into rough seas, an act that feels akin to choreographing an elephant ballet, or cinching loose cables requires immense effort. You find yourself among men sweating in 3 layers of wool, the exertion generating a clammy heat beneath your sodden clothes, while constantly bracing against the unpredictable lurch and roll of the vessel. Every step is a deliberate act of balance, every lift a test of strength against the ocean's capricious whims. Your muscles ache, your joints groan, but you push through, knowing that the integrity of the ship and thus the convoy depends on your unwavering effort, a silent prayer for stability. Manning the deck gun, even when silent, is a task that feels more psychological than practical, a metal scarecrow waving at ghosts. You stand by it, trained and ready, its cold steel a familiar presence. Yet most of the time it's just there, a silent sentinel, a symbol of potential rather than active engagement. But the constant readiness, the immense responsibility for its potential use weighs heavily on the crew. You mentally cycle through the firing sequence, imagining the roar, the recoil, the splash, hoping you never have to turn those imaginings into reality. It's a paradox, a weapon of immense power, that you pray remains dormant, a grim reminder of the violence lurking beneath the waves, a silent guardian against an unseen terror. Routine duties, seemingly mundane in their nature, also become part of this constant effort to keep the mind occupied. Scrubbing rust, checking lines, tightening bolts. These tasks are often less about actual necessity, and more about staying busy, about avoiding the insidious thoughts of impending doom. The rhythmic scrape of a wire, brush, the satisfying clink of a wrench, provide a temporary mental anchor, a distraction from the pervasive fear. It's a continuous effort to keep your mind from wandering into the dark corners of anxiety, a way to maintain a semblance of control in a situation where so much is utterly beyond your command. Each repetitive action is a tiny battle against the erosion of sanity, a small act of defiance against the overwhelming void. Shifts blur into a continuous state of alertness, a relentless cycle that wears down both body and mind. Physical exhaustion becomes a constant companion, your legs aching from standing, walking, bracing, waiting. This deep, persistent ache prevents true rest even when you do get a chance to lie down. It exacerbates the mental toll, making it harder to concentrate, easier to succumb to the gnawing worries. You feel perpetually strung out like a tightly wound spring, always ready, never truly at peace. The lines between day and night, between duty and rest, dissolve into a hazy, indistinguishable continuum of effort and fatigue, a timeless grey existence. This physical strain is compounded by a constant sensory assault from the environment. The wind cuts through your coat, slicing along your arms like a frozen razor, finding every seam, every gap in your layers. You feel it a chilling caress that promises to strip away your warmth and your resolve. And every tool you touch feels dipped in ice, the metal conducting the frigid temperatures directly into your already numb fingers. Every task, no matter how simple, becomes a battle against the elements, a struggle for dexterity and warmth in a world designed to deny you both. You work with stiff, aching hands, your breath fogging in the frigid air, your body a canvas for the brutal realities of the North Atlantic, a living monument to human endurance. Amidst the constant physical struggles and the relentless grind of duty, an even more insidious enemy begins its work, the psychological toll, the slow, agonizing erosion of sanity amidst profound uncertainty. You realize that the constant threat infuses every aspect of daily life, blurring the lines between the mundane and the terrifying. That mouthful of powdered eggs, in the mess hall tasting faintly of salt and chemicals, becomes indistinguishable from the taste of fear that sticks around in your mouth, a pervasive and inescapable sensation that never quite dissipates. It's a metallic tang, a dry bitterness that clings to your tongue long after the meagre meal is done, a constant reminder of the unseen dangers that surround you. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a visceral, deeply ingrained experience, a flavour of dread you can't quite wash away. The relentless greyness of the sky and the sea blurs your senses, creating an oppressive monotony that wears down your perception. Days merge into weeks, horizons become indistinguishable, and your mind, starved of varied stimuli, begins to play tricks. You start to see imagined shapes in the mist, fleeting shadows on the waves that could be anything or nothing. You catch glimpses of ghost ships, phantoms born of fatigue and fear, their silent forms vanishing as quickly as they appear. There's an unsettling feeling that the ocean is listening, or actively playing tricks on your already frayed mind, a malevolent sentient entity toying with your perceptions. You question what is real and what is merely a product of your overwrought imagination, a dangerous spiral in an environment where true vigilance is paramount. Every alarm, even a drill, sends your heart into your throat, a sickening lurch that feels like a physical blow. The klaxons scream shrill and urgent, and your body reacts instantly, adrenaline surging through your veins, preparing for the worst. Even after the all-clear sounds, after you confirm it was merely a practice run, there's a lingering 10 minutes to unclench, a period where your muscles remain tensed, your breath shallow, your mind still racing through worst-case scenarios. This highlights the sustained physiological and psychological stress that never truly dissipates. Your body is constantly primed for danger, and that state of perpetual readiness is exhausting, slowly draining your reserves of calm and resilience, leaving you perpetually wired. Rest, when it comes, is fleeting and deeply unsatisfying. Your sleep is rarely peaceful, marked by dreams of waves and silence. Too much silence, an unnatural, terrifying quiet that speaks of the abyss, or worse, dreams of shadows, things moving under the water, things that don't make noise, revealing a subconscious battle with unseen threats and internal echo of the U-boat menace. You wake up feeling no more rested than when you went to sleep, the images and sensations of your dreams lingering like a bad taste in your mouth, blurring the line between the waking nightmare and the nocturnal one. The respite of sleep meant to rejuvenate, instead becomes another theatre of psychological warfare, a battle fought even in unconsciousness. Time itself becomes distorted, a fluid, unreliable construct. Minutes stretch, like taffy, each moment elongated by tension and monotony. The inability to distinguish day from night in the ship's cramped interior, or to remember the precise day of the week, signifies a profound mental fatigue and disorientation. You rely on the ship's bells, on the changing of the watch, to orient yourself in a temporal landscape that has lost all meaning. The days bleed into one another, a monotonous march forward through endless grey seas, creating a sense of being utterly detached from the normal flow of human existence, a timeless drift. Despite being surrounded by crewmates, the personal experience of fear and survival is isolating. You struggle to write a letter home, the pen feeling heavy in your numb fingers, the blank page a vast, intimidating expanse. There's nothing to say that wouldn't scare her. Referring to a loved one, perhaps a wife or mother. How do you describe the bone-chilling cold, the constant fear, the screams of men vanishing into the waves without shattering the carefully constructed piece of their lives ashore? You can't. This inability to bridge the chasm between your brutal reality and their distant normalcy creates a profound emotional chasm, a silent barrier that separates you from the people you love most. You're alone in your experience, even in a crowded mess hall, even on a busy deck, a solitary island in a sea of shared dread. Shifting your focus now, you begin to grasp that beyond the raw personal struggles of daily life, you're navigating a world shaped by broader mutable structures and relentless environmental forces. These elements dictate the very terms of your existence in the North Atlantic, forming a foundational reality that underpins every decision, every fear, and every moment of endurance. You're not simply a man on a ship. You're a single thread in a vast, intricate tapestry, woven by the cold hand of global conflict and the unforgiving will of nature. Understanding these overarching structures helps you contextualize your own minute-by-minute battle, giving shape to the chaos and providing a grim logic to the sacrifices demanded of you, a silent understanding of your place in the grand design. The most immediate of these structures is the inescapable social hierarchy and the rigid naval organization that governs every breath you take. The convoy itself represents an unbreakable hierarchy of purpose, a slow, churning beast made of steel and strategy. It is an organism composed of dozens of ships, each with its own role, but all moving as one driven by a singular overarching mission. The numerous merchant vessels, large and lumbering, are entirely dependent on the smaller, faster escort ships like yours, for their very survival. You're the guardians, the shepherds in a wolf-infested sea, and that responsibility weighs heavily, a constant unspoken pressure that underscores every action you take. This hierarchical dependency isn't abstract. It's a palpable reality where the fate of many rests on the vigilance of a few. The fundamental purpose of this convoy system, this steel beast you are a part of, is to maintain the vital lifelines between America and Europe. You're acutely aware that you're ensuring the flow of critical oil tankers and ammunition freighters, the very sinews of war essential for the Allied effort. Without these supplies, the front lines in Europe would falter, the machines of war would grind to a halt, and the entire struggle against fascism would be jeopardized. This dire necessity establishes the profound importance of the operation, making every lost ship, every lost life a tangible blow to the war effort. You're not just delivering cargo, you are delivering hope, and that weight, though immense, is also a source of grim determination, a silent promise to those far away. Within this vast military machine, you, the individual sailor, are acutely aware of your fixed, albeit often vague, role. You're a member of a skeleton crew keeping them safe, a small force stretched thin across a colossal undertaking. Your duties are specific, your orders immediate and unquestioning. They're issued with little explanation from the brass, those unseen commanders in distant warm offices who dictate your movements from charts and reports. You don't need to understand the grand strategy. You simply need to execute your part flawlessly, trusting that the broader plan, however opaque, serves a necessary purpose. This chain of command is absolute, an iron cage of duty that defines your every action and limits your individual agency, reducing you to a function rather than a person. The sheer scale of the convoy, dozens of ships stretching into the mist, only emphasizes your individual insignificance within the broader strategic enterprise. You're a single face among thousands, a lone rifleman in an army of ships. This scale can be both comforting in the sense of shared fate and deeply unsettling as you recognize yourself as a mere cog in a massive vulnerable machine. If one ship goes down, the convoy continues. The mission, it's understood, is larger than any single vessel or any single life. This realization fosters a profound sense of fatalism, a quiet acceptance of your place in the grand, terrifying calculus of war, a small life swallowed by a vast impersonal conflict. And then there's the inherent fragility of the supply chain itself, starkly evident in the merchant ships you're sworn to protect. Many are old, often rusted into barely floating bathtubs that barely survived World War I. These ancient vessels, ill-equipped for modern warfare, place immense pressure on escorts like yours, highlighting their critical role. You see them wallowing in the swells, sometimes listing slightly, and you know their vulnerability, their slow, heavy movements making them tempting targets. Their very presence underscores the immense challenge of your task, and reinforces the understanding that every watchful eye, every accurate sonar ping, every well-placed depth charge is crucial. The captain, a quiet man with silvering hair, embodies the absolute authority and immense weight of command, a figure both revered and at times feared. His gaze, often distant, seems to hold the burden of hundreds of lives and perhaps the fate of the war itself. He makes grim life-or-death decisions that trickle down the chain of command, impacting your daily reality. One such policy, a chilling necessity of wartime survival, is the directive to do not retrieve lost sailors. This isn't a lack of compassion, but a cold, hard calculus stopping for a single man would expose the entire convoy to the very U-boats you're trying to evade. You see the unspoken understanding in his eyes, the heavy cost of his command, and you understand that sometimes humanity must yield to strategy for the greater good. This policy, though brutal, reflects the ultimate priorities of this theatre of war, where the individual is sacrificed for the survival of the many. Beyond the command structure, the core economy and resource management aboard ship define your world as one of absolute scarcity. You operate on an economy of sheer survival, where precious resources are not currency in the traditional sense, but essential commodities strictly controlled and frighteningly finite. Food rations, fuel for the engines, and critically depth charges. These are the true measures of wealth and power here. Every canister of beans, every drop of oil, every expensive firecracker is accounted for, allocated with a precision born of desperate need. This isn't a world of abundance. It's a world where every single item has a profound life-or-death value, and waste is not just frowned upon, but potentially catastrophic, a harsh lesson in frugality. The strategic and material value of the convoy's cargo, primarily oil and ammunition, renders the merchant ships juicy clusters of concentrated targets. You look at them slow and heavy in the water, and you see not just vessels, but immense floating bombs waiting for a spark. This inherent vulnerability, this concentrated value, is what drives the relentless U-boat threat shaping all tactical decisions. The enemy isn't just looking for ships, they're looking for the vital organs of the Allied war effort, and you are positioned right in the heart of that vulnerability. Every patrol, every sonar sweep, every shift of the ship's course is informed by this understanding of the convoy's immense tempting value to the unseen predators below, a constant invitation to disaster. Depth charges, those expensive firecrackers, are a particularly illustrative example of this resource scarcity. They are a limited and vital commodity, requiring careful deployment and underscoring the critical decision-making needed to avoid waste or unintended consequences. You can't just drop them willy-nilly. Each one represents a significant investment, a finite weapon that must be used with precision and purpose. The sound of one exploding a deep concussive thud that vibrates through the hull is a stark reminder of their power and their scarcity. You know that if you expend them needlessly when the true attack comes, you might have nothing left to defend yourself with, leaving you and your charges utterly exposed, a terrifying thought in the vastness. Food reduced to powdered mystery and canned beans is a basic but equally precious ration. It's consumed for sheer physical function, rather than enjoyment symbolizing the austere and deprived conditions of life at sea. You eat to survive, to maintain enough energy to perform your duties, not for pleasure or comfort. The taste and texture are secondary to the caloric intake, a stark reminder of how far removed your current existence is from the luxuries of home. Every spoonful, every bite is a utilitarian act, a contribution to your continued survival in this unforgiving environment, a testament to the fact that even the most basic human needs are rationed and controlled, a grim echo of the wider war. But beyond material supplies, the economy of human endurance is profoundly finite. You and your shipmates lack the energy for internal conflict, for petty squabbles, or for anything that doesn't directly contribute to survival. Basic necessities like dry warmth and adequate sleep become unattainable luxuries, signifying your profound physical and mental depletion. Your reserves are constantly being drawn upon, rarely replenished. The very concept of extra energy, whether physical or emotional, is an alien one. You exist in a state of perpetual deficit, pushing your body and mind to limits you never knew, existed a living embodiment of the war's insatiable demands, a constant drain on your very being. As you settle deeper into the profound scarcity of resources and the rigid naval structure, you begin to understand that your ultimate adversary is not just the German U-boat, but nature itself. The North Atlantic is portrayed not merely as a setting, but as a malevolent, sentient adversary, a vast, merciless stretch of water that in your mind seems to possess a will of its own. You feel it growl under the hull when the waves build, then hiss, with icy spray across the deck when a particularly large crest breaks. Its icy spite feels unnervingly personal, as if the ocean itself is actively working against your survival, testing your resolve, seeking to claim you for its frigid depths. This personification of the sea is not just a poetic flourish. It's a deeply felt reality for those who battle its unforgiving temperament daily, a constant antagonist. The pervasive deep cold acts as a constant tormentor, an omnipresent force that defines your every waking moment. It's described as colder than outer space, and you can almost believe it. You've witnessed tears, those involuntary expressions of the human condition, freeze instantly to your cheeks, turning to tiny shards of ice. Your breath fogs so thickly that it looks like smoke, a visible exhalation of your struggle against the frigid air. This cold relentlessly penetrates every layer of clothing, seeping past the thick wool, past your skin, right into your bones. It poses a continuous threat of hypothermia for you and your fellow US sailors, a slow, insidious killer that can incapacitate as surely as a torpedo. You're in a constant low-level fight against it, a battle to retain even a sliver of body heat, a Sisyphean struggle against the encroaching chill. The sea's unpredictable and violent motion is another relentless assailant. The ship is constantly bucking, twisting in long, angry arcs, rising and falling with sickening irregularity. Waves smash across the bow, with the force of a battering ram, sending spray high into the air, drenching everything in an instant. Other times the waves are smaller but just as menacing, lapping at the hull, with a sinister whispering sound that seems to promise eventual breach. This ceaseless, violent motion makes movement treacherous. Every step is a deliberate act of bracing, of finding your sea legs in a whirl that never stays still. Your muscles ache constantly from the effort your body forever adjusting to the ocean's chaotic dance, leaving you perpetually off balance both physically and mentally, a continuous fight for equilibrium. Environmental conditions conspire to deepen the sense of isolation and vulnerability. Near total darkness, thick fog and haze are common companions, especially during moonless nights. These conditions severely restrict visibility, transforming the convoy into a ghost parade, a procession of dark silhouettes that appear and disappear in the swirling mists. You strain your eyes trying to pierce the gloom, but the world around you becomes a blur of indistinguishable shapes, enhancing the sense of being utterly alone and exposed. The lack of clear sight lines makes the U-boat threat even more terrifying, turning the enemy into an invisible, ubiquitous menace that could strike from any direction at any moment without warning, a silent threat in a shrouded world. Storms, when they arrive, are not just weather events. They're amplifications of your worst fears, pushing the ship and its crew to their absolute limits. Rain pelting the deck in heavy stinging sheets reduces visibility to mere feet, turning the exposed decks into slick, dangerous traps. Winds howl through the rigging with a banshee shriek, ripping at your clothes, threatening to tear them from your body. The sheer force of the storm makes the very ship feel as if it's coming apart at the seams, groaning and shuddering under the immense stress. These aren't just physical challenges. They amplify the psychological toll, turning the familiar vessel into a terrifying, fragile shell that seems perpetually on the verge of splintering beneath you. And perhaps most chilling of all is the ocean's ultimate indifference. It doesn't care about human suffering or fear about the lives it claims or the convoys it protects. It is an immutable, constant presence that, once you gone, a force of nature that existed long before you and will continue long after. Its occasional stillness, those moments of eerie calm after a storm, often proves more unnerving than its rage, a deceptive placidness that hides its true destructive power. You learn to respect this indifference, to fear it, and to understand that your survival is a temporary negotiation with a force that ultimately seeks to erase all traces of your passage. This understanding underscores your profound vulnerability and the constant silent battle for existence on the North Atlantic, a lonely defiance against an ancient indifferent power. Within this harsh North Atlantic environment and the rigid naval structure, the very mechanisms of power and control are constantly tested by the immediate threat of conflict and the visceral human responses it provokes. You're not just a passive observer, you're an active participant moulded by these forces, responding to them in ways you never thought possible. The dance between authority and survival, between order and chaos, plays out around you every single day, shaping your understanding of command and obedience in the crucible of war, a relentless education in human limits. Orders from the brass are a constant, unwavering presence. They are issued without explanation or consultation, demanding immediate execution. You rarely, if ever, receive a detailed briefing on the grand strategic picture. Your understanding of the full tactical situation is deliberately limited, a need-to-know basis that reinforces your position in the hierarchy. This centralized, opaque command structure means you're expected to obey, not to question. You're a tool in a larger hand, and your role is to perform your function without hesitation. This unwavering expectation of immediate compliance, even when the rationale is unclear, embodies the fundamental nature of naval discipline in wartime, a silent, unwavering command. The captain, that quiet man with the silvering hair, exercises absolute solitary authority. His command is law, and his decisions are final. This includes grim but strategically necessary choices such as the do not retrieve policy for fallen sailors. You may witness a shipmate swept overboard, a dark shape swallowed by the waves, and you know with a sickening certainty that the ship will not stop. This policy, prioritizing the convoy survival over individual lives, reflects the brutal calculus of war, a cold hard truth that screams of the immense stakes. It's a decision that weighs heavily on the captain, on every officer, and on your own conscience. But it is one born of grim necessity, a sacrifice made for the many. Discipline and vigilance are not merely encouraged. They are enforced through the severe consequences of failure. The threat of dooming the whole convoy for falling asleep on watch is not an idle warning. It's a stark, terrifying reality that underscores the collective responsibility you all share and the extraordinarily high stakes of every individual's performance. Every sailor knows that their momentary lapse could lead to the loss of dozens of ships and thousands of lives. This understanding creates an intense pressure, a self-policing dynamic where you're not just responsible for yourself, but for the entire floating community, a powerful incentive to remain alert no matter how exhausted you are, a grim oath of shared survival. The iron rule of convoy cohesion is etched into your very being. Convoys stick together and nobody gets left behind. A noble sentiment, you think, until the grim unspoken addendum whispers in your ear, until someone does. This, you learn, is the non-negotiable nature of maintaining formation. Deviating from the carefully prescribed course, straggling behind or breaking formation, is an invitation to disaster, a direct challenge to the hostile waters of the North Atlantic. You understand that in this environment, independence is suicide. The convoy is your only shield, your only strength, and to break from it is to condemn yourself. The grim reality is that while the rule is nobody gets left behind, there are always exceptions, always those who fall victim to the sea or the enemy sacrificed for the greater good of the remaining vessels. Information flow is tightly controlled, a strategic decision designed to manage morale and prevent panic. Intelligence such as fleeting sonar contacts or intercepted transmissions of enemy chatter rarely reaches you directly from official channels. Instead, it causes rumours to ripple through the crew, tightening the atmosphere like a coiled spring. You hear whispers in the mess hall, hushed conversations on deck, extrapolations from incomplete data. This manipulation of uncertainty, whether intentional or not, is a powerful tool of control. It keeps you on edge, vigilant, but also creates an internal tension that slowly grinds down your nerves. You're always guessing, always wondering, always imagining the worst, a psychological burden as heavy as any physical one. The stark difference between official terminology and your lived experience further reflects the inherent disconnect between strategic planning and the bewildering reality of executing orders in a volatile environment. What strategists in comfortable offices might call tactical fluidity, you experience as chaos in slow motion. The idea of dynamic maneuvers sounds impressive on paper, but when you're clinging to a lurching deck trying to follow a course correction that seems arbitrary, it's anything but fluid. It's a struggle, a desperate effort to maintain control and cohesion, while your ship pitches and rolls, often in the dead of night or through thick fog blurring the lines between order and utter disarray. You realise that the theoretical neatness of war plans dissolves quickly in the face of the North Atlantic's brutal reality, leaving only the messy truth. The legal and enforcement mechanisms aboard ship are less about formal court proceedings and more about an implicit, pervasive social pressure. You quickly learn that you do what the others do or you stand out. This isn't just about conformity. It's a powerful, unspoken enforcement mechanism ensuring that everyone adheres to the rigid routines and expectations. Any behaviour that might draw negative attention from superiors or peers among the US Navy crew is subtly but firmly discouraged. A slacker, a complainer, someone who breaks ranks, they threaten the delicate balance of the collective, and the unspoken censure from your shipmates can be as potent as any official reprimand. You become acutely aware of the collective gaze, the shared understanding of what it means to pull your weight to be a reliable part of the machine. Naval regulations are strictly applied sometimes to an almost agonizing degree, especially when human desire clashes with operational security. The prohibition on showing lights, for instance, is absolute. Even in the deepest, darkest hours when the longing for a tiny bulb in the engine room porthole feels like salvation, a small beacon of warmth and familiarity, it is denied. The absolute priority of operational security in these hostile waters means that any light, however small, could be a beacon for a U-boat revealing the convoy's position. This ironclad rule underscores the constant vigilance required and the personal sacrifices demanded for the collective good, turning simple desires into dangerous temptations, a grim lesson in discipline. Accountability is constant and visibly enforced. Officers and senior crew are meticulously checking gear, their eyes scanning for any lapse, any oversight. They inspect the tilt of searchlights, ensuring they are correctly positioned for maximum effectiveness, and constantly check adherence to readiness protocols. This relentless oversight reinforces a culture of constant preparedness, a system designed to catch any weakness, any potential point of failure before it can be exploited by the enemy. You're always under scrutiny, always expected to be at peak readiness, because the consequences of not being so are too dire to contemplate. This pervasive watchfulness, though tiring, creates a powerful sense of collective discipline, a never-ending audit of your readiness. The unwritten, almost gone-in-gummy-like system of collective responsibility further binds you to your shipmates. The understanding that one sailor's error could doom the whole convoy creates intense peer pressure and a self-policing dynamic. If you mess up, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting everyone down. Your mistake could lead to the deaths of your friends, your comrades. This makes individual mistakes potentially catastrophic for the entire group, fostering a powerful sense of mutual reliance and a shared burden. You're constantly aware that your vigilance protects not just your own life, but the lives of every man on every ship in the convoy, a responsibility that is both crushing and deeply motivating a bond forged in fear. The shadow of death and the abstract concept of honour serve as powerful, albeit grim mechanisms of societal control shaping your mindset and actions. The casual assertion that you probably won't survive the day is not meant as a joke, but as a statement of pervasive fatalism. It establishes death not as a remote possibility, but a grimly anticipated outcome for any US sailor in the North Atlantic's lethal environment. You hear it, you internalize it, and it subtly alters your perception of time, of effort, of what truly matters. This fatalism, this constant awareness of your own mortality, is a heavy cloak that you wear a part of the uniform of survival, a silent acceptance of the odds. You learn with a chilling certainty that survival is depicted as a grim lottery in this unforgiving theatre. The average survival time in the North Atlantic for a man in the water is measured in mere minutes, often dependent on arbitrary factors like the thickness of your clothing, the presence of a life vest, or sheer dumb luck. This grim statistic highlights the arbitrary and unforgiving nature of fate in this environment. It's a game of chance where the odds are stacked heavily against you, and you exist with the constant knowledge that a single rogue wave or an unseen torpedo could end your existence in a heartbeat, leaving you to succumb to the frigid embrace of the ocean in agonizingly swift fashion. You are merely a player in a game you cannot win, only hope to prolong. Witnessing men abandoning sinking ships, their frantic forms vanishing into the trough of a wave without any hope of rescue due to the established policy of not stopping, is a harrowing experience that scars your memory. You watch helpless as distant figures disappear, swallowed by the vastness, knowing that even if you wanted to, you couldn't offer aid. This brutal cost of tactical necessity, this absence of individual aid, underscores the cold, dehumanizing reality of wartime survival. You see the smoke, the oil, the debris, but the lives are gone, sacrificed to the relentless forward motion of the convoy. Each sinking is a direct, visceral reminder of your own precarious position, a chilling glimpse into your potential fate. The chilling promise exchanged between sailors, a morbid pact born of shared desperation, rings in your ears. If I go overboard, don't try to get me. This isn't a plea for neglect. It signifies a profound shared acceptance of death as an inevitable and perhaps merciful outcome in the freezing, unforgiving waters. It's a silent acknowledgement that trying to save one man could jeopardize many, and that sometimes the kindest act is to let go, allowing the ocean to claim its due. This grim understanding speaks volumes about the psychological landscape of the North Atlantic, where the value of an individual life is measured against the survival of the collective, a hard truth etched into your soul. The repeated encounters with wreckage are constant, brutal reminders of pervasive loss. You see smoke plumes from distant sinking ships, a dark smudge against the grey horizon, a funeral pyre for vanished lives. And then there are the empty life rafts, those heartbreaking symbols of failed hope. They drift silently, rocking alone as if the ocean set it down like a forgotten toy, a poignant, chilling testament to the men who once clung to them, who perhaps for a brief moment believed they might be saved. These visual cues, these silent echoes of tragedy, are etched into your memory, reinforcing the fragility of life and the ever-present shadow of death that follows the convoy, a grim parade of loss. Even tactical victories offer little closure. The official term probable kill, after a depth charge attack, which means seeing oil or bubbles but no confirmed wreckage, symbolises the persistent uncertainty. You might see a dark, slick bloom on the surface, hear distant concussions, but you never truly know if you've eliminated the threat. This ambiguity extends the shadow of death even over moments of supposed triumph, preventing any true sense of relief or satisfaction. The enemy remains unseen, their fate often unknown, leaving you in a state of perpetual tension, never quite certain if the danger has truly passed or if it merely lurks wounded, waiting for another opportunity. The war you learn rarely offers neat endings, only questions. These unseen dangers are the German U-boats, a constant unseen menace. They're described with a mixture of fear and grudging respect as steel predators designed to be silent, fast and invisible. They operate in wolf packs, a coordinated hunting strategy that amplifies their lethality, turning the vast ocean into their hunting ground. This understanding drives the convoy's perpetual state of high alert and terror. You know they are out there unseen, unheard until it's too late, and that knowledge gnaws at your nerves, making every shadow, every sound, a potential harbinger of doom. The psychological impact of an invisible enemy is profound as your imagination fills in the terrifying blanks, painting a picture of silent, lurking death. The enemy's tactics extend beyond direct attack. They engage in a chilling form of psychological warfare. You sense them toying with the convoy, not always striking immediately, but shadowing, observing, subtly making their presence felt. Sonar ghosts appear on the screen's fleeting contacts that vanish as quickly as they emerge, leaving you to question their reality. False positives on the hydrophones faint sounds that could be a U-boat, but might also be the creak of your own hull, or the distant sounds of marine life further fray your nerves. These deliberate or accidental deceptions are designed to exhaust the crew, to blur the line between real and imagined threats, turning the very ocean into a source of paranoid suspicion. You find yourself questioning your own senses, wondering if your fatigue is making you see or hear things that aren't there, or if these subtle cues are indeed the precursor to an attacker mind game played on a grand, terrifying scale. Then comes the truly unsettling moment a convoy vessel struck. You don't always see it, but you feel it. A distant thud that rattles your teeth, followed by a flash, and then a bloom of smoke so dark it looks like someone took a giant eraser to the sky. Any illusions of safety you might have nursed, however, briefly vanish faster than a rum ration on shore leave. This sudden, violent event shatters any illusion of safety, causing immediate and widespread panic among some, and a cold, steely resolve in others. The sound, the sight, the distant chaos. It's a visceral confirmation of your deepest fears, a brutal reminder that the invisible enemy is real, and it is here a thunderclap in the oppressive quiet. Multiple explosions are a terrifying escalation, particularly when a freighter's cargo of ammunition or oil ignites. The initial strike is often followed by secondary blasts, a devastating chain reaction that demonstrates the overwhelming scale of destruction at sea. The sky lights up with an orange glow, massive columns of smoke and fire erupting from the stricken vessel, turning night into a hellish day. You watch horrified as an entire ship is consumed, its structure twisting and tearing apart under the immense forces unleashed. These are not just ships, they are floating cities, and their demise is an apocalyptic spectacle, leaving you breathless with a chilling mixture of awe and terror, a vision of hell on water. The grim immediate task of manoeuvring to avoid the wreckage while simultaneously witnessing bodies. Floating in the water is a profound, dehumanizing experience. You have to steer your ship around the debris, the splintered wood, the shattered steel, knowing that among it are the remains of men who were alive just moments ago. The sight of those bodies stark against the dark water forces you to directly confront the horrific, dehumanizing cost of naval combat. There is no time to mourn, no time to reflect. You must continue your own survival, dependent on your ability to disconnect, to push the images from your mind and focus on the task at hand. It's a brutal suppression of empathy, a necessary evil in the face of overwhelming tragedy, a silent plea for oblivion. The immediate synchronized response to attack is a testament to relentless training and the sheer desperation of self-preservation. Your ship, along with others, banks hard and sudden, the deck tilting violently, sending you scrambling for handholds. Depth charges are dropped like a trail of thunder, their explosions sending shockwaves through the water, aimed at the presumed location of the attacker. Warning bursts from deck guns fire into the air, a desperate attempt to deter or distract. This highlights the organized yet desperate nature of defensive operations, a coordinated chaos born of adrenaline and survival instinct. Every man knows his role. Every action is precise, yet the underlying current is one of primal terror and the fierce will to survive a desperate ballet of destruction. And then there are the Ronin, the discarded warriors, which in this context refers to the very nature of the enemy. The U-boat is often perceived as a ghost with teeth, unseen yet omnipresent, instilling a profound sense of awe and terror. It's not just its destructive capability that chills you to the bone, but its elusive, almost supernatural nature. You fight an enemy you cannot see, cannot touch, an enemy that exists in the depths, striking without warning, vanishing without a trace. This spectral quality makes the threat even more potent, transforming the ocean into a vast, silent hunting ground where you are perpetually the prey, forever searching for a shadow, a phantom in the deep. From the chilling perspective of a periscope, your own ship is reduced to just a silhouette, a name, a shape, nothing human. This thought, unsettling in its cold detachment, reflects the impersonal and dehumanizing reality of being a target in technologically advanced warfare. To the U-boat captain, you are merely a target marker, a blip on a scope devoid of the lives and stories within. This dehumanization is a chilling parallel to your own struggle to maintain humanity in the face of the North Atlantic's brutality, where both sides are reduced to strategic pieces on a deadly chessboard. You're reminded that the enemy too sees you as a means to an end, a statistic in their own grim ledger, another anonymous vessel to be erased. The enemy's calculated patience is a particularly terrifying aspect of their strategy. U-boats are described as waiting for a ship to fall out of line, or waiting for someone to blink. This isn't brute force. It's a cunning strategic approach to their relentless hunting, a chilling patience that preys on human error, exhaustion, and the inevitable moments of vulnerability within a convoy. They are not merely striking at random. They're observing, calculating, and waiting for the precise moment to exploit a weakness. This knowledge adds another insidious layer of psychological pressure, making every moment of quiet, every lull in the storm a period of agonizing anticipation, knowing that unseen eyes might be watching, waiting for your resolve to falter. The persistent debate over sonar's reliability, was it cutting-edge detection, or just a false sense of safety, reveals the inherent limitations of technology against an unseen enemy and the unpredictable moods of the North Atlantic. Sonar pings are your primary tool, your ears in the vast dark depths, but they are not infallible. Phantom contacts, echoes from marine life or underwater topography, frequently cause false alarms, draining your resources and your nerves. You rely on the technology, but you never fully trust it, always aware of its fallibility, always wondering if the machine is truly showing you the truth or merely playing its own tricks, much like the ocean itself. This technological uncertainty only deepens the pervasive sense of unease and vulnerability, leaving you to constantly second-guess your perceptions. Rumours of advanced enemy intelligence further amplify the sense of being constantly observed and outmaneuvered by a sophisticated opponent. Whispers of 12 confirmed, convoy under watch, or long-range spotters, planes, submarine relays circulate among the crew. These tales, whether grounded in fact or amplified by fear, suggest that the enemy isn't merely reacting to your presence. They are planning, coordinating, possessing an eerie foreknowledge of your movements. This perception of superior enemy intelligence amplifies the feeling of being relentlessly hunted, of being utterly exposed in a game where the opponent seems to hold an unfair advantage. It adds another layer of hopelessness, a sense that your every move is anticipated, your every defense already countered before it's even fully implemented, a truly chilling thought. Rare fleeting visual confirmations of the enemy, however brief, offer terrifyingly vivid glimpses of the unseen, shattering the abstract dread and replacing it with concrete terrifying images. A sleek dark silhouette gliding just beneath the surface, a brief shadowy form cutting through the waves, or the glint of a thin metal rod cutting through the waves, the unmistakable glint of a periscope. These are moments of stark, undeniable reality, confirming your deepest fears, materializing the phantom, and then as quickly as they appear, they vanish again. These terrifyingly brief sightings are etched into your memory, providing a concrete image to your abstract dread, a momentary chilling face to the ghost with teeth, a stark reminder of the ultimate predator that silently patrols these frigid waters. Amidst this relentless threat and structured military reality, a distinct social fabric emerges, woven from unspoken rules, shared superstitions, and the poignant echoes of lives left ashore. This human element, this shared cultural space, becomes your only sanctuary, your only true connection in a world otherwise defined by isolation and violence. It is in these subtle interactions, these quiet understandings, that you find the fragile threads that hold your sanity and perhaps your very soul together, a testament to the enduring human need for connection, even in the face of despair. In this crucible of fear and isolation, a profound unspoken camaraderie develops, a silent language of survival that transcends formal communication. On deck, no one speaks. It's not a rule enforced by command, but an unspoken agreement, a mutual understanding. You all know what's out there. You realize, and verbalizing it feels unnecessary, even dangerous. This shared internalized dread fosters a bond based on mutual experience, a silent pact of vigilance and understanding that speaks louder than any words. You communicate through glances, through shared shifts of weight, against a lurching deck, through the synchronized actions of men working together in grim silence, a choreography of shared apprehension. During moments of extreme tension, this collective, almost superstitious etiquette becomes even more pronounced. No one speaks, because if you name it, you give it power, is the prevailing sentiment. It's a deliberate avoidance of verbalizing fear, a quiet ritual to somehow control the uncontrollable. To utter the word U-boat when you suspect one is near feels like an invitation, a summoning. So you remain silent, the tension thick in the air, a palpable force that binds you all in a shared unspoken prayer for deliverance. The silence is not peaceful. It's pregnant with unspoken anxieties, a powerful testament to the psychological pressure cooker you inhabit, a quiet hum of collective dread. Officers, too, rely heavily on nonverbal cues and tone, rather than explicit commands, especially in sensitive situations. A sharp glance, a subtle hand gesture, a lowered voice that carries a particular gravitas, these become paramount for conveying urgency and maintaining discipline without alerting potential listeners, human or mechanical. You learn to read these signals to understand the nuanced meaning behind a narrowed eye or a tightened jaw. It creates an environment where subtlety is key, where unspoken warnings are more effective than shouted orders, further emphasizing the depth of this silent language that governs your interactions, a nuanced dance of unspoken authority. Gallows humour, that dark, twisted twin of despair, serves as a crucial, if grim, form of communication. Jokes about sharks, about the quality of the powdered eggs, or your shipmate Red's cheerful fatalism, "Only when I think I might die soon," act as a pressure valve. These are not attempts to genuinely lighten the mood, but a way to manage tension, to acknowledge the omnipresent horror without succumbing to it. It's a mechanism to maintain a fragile sense of sanity among the crew, a shared dark laughter that says, yes, this is awful, but we're still here and we can still find something absurd in it. A bleak solidarity in the face of the abyss. Attempts to start songs fizzle out, and mess hall chatter becomes muted, indicating a general reluctance for deep conversation. You notice that no one laughs, no one raises their voice. The typical boisterousness of men gathered together is conspicuously absent, reflecting a pervasive emotional suppression. There's a quiet understanding that expressing too much emotion, whether joy or despair, is dangerous, a crack in the facade of resilience that no one can afford. So you exist in a low hum of quiet interaction, preserving your emotional energy, guarding your inner self against the constant onslaught of the external world, a silent self-preservation. The internal struggle of whether to report a fleeting ominous sighting on the water, a shimmer, a ripple that looks just a little too deliberate, is a heavy burden. You fear that, if you name it, then it becomes real. This dilemma reveals a deep-seated apprehension about confirming their constant dread, about transforming a vague anxiety into a concrete, immediate threat. You second-guess your perceptions, weighing the risk of a false alarm against the catastrophic consequences of remaining silent. It's a moment of terrifying personal responsibility, where the line between intuition and paranoia is dangerously thin, and the decision you make could mean the difference between life and death for everyone aboard a silent, agonizing gamble. Within this shared realm of unspoken fears and grim humour, cultural disciplines emerge as a form of performance, the rituals of endurance that help you maintain a semblance of normalcy. Sharing a cigarette, even for non-smokers, becomes more than just a momentary indulgence. It transforms into a quiet ritual of solidarity. It's a brief moment of shared vulnerability and connection against the overwhelming isolation and threat on the North Atlantic. You might not even inhale, but the act of holding the glowing ember, of passing it to a shipmate, of sharing that brief, acrid breath, fosters a quiet intimacy, a small human exchange in a world that often feels devoid of such warmth. It's a silent recognition of shared fate, a small comfort in a vast, cold expanse. The belief in superstitions, those irrational yet deeply comforting narratives, provides you and your shipmates with a psychological framework to cope with the unpredictable and uncontrollable nature of your environment. From the old sailor's adage that gulls follow death, they're circling a morbid omen, to carrying lucky charms like a sewn doll or a tarnished coin, these beliefs are woven into the fabric of daily life. They offer a fragile sense of agency, a small personal shield against the immense forces beyond your control. You might dismiss them intellectually, but in the depths of your fear you find yourself clinging to these ancient tales and tokens, seeking a shred of mystical protection against the cold, indifferent sea and its unseen predators. Personal habits. Those small, often mundane routines transform into essential rhythms or lifelines. Polishing your boots even when they'll be soaked again in an hour, or scribbling in a notebook, even if there's nothing profound to write, become acts of quiet defiance. These rituals offer a fragile sense of control, a connection to a semblance of normalcy that existed before the war, before this ship, before this endless grey ocean. They are small anchors in the vast sea of chaos, a way to affirm your individuality and humanity in an environment that constantly seeks to strip them away. Each repetitive action, however small, is a quiet assertion of self, a tiny rebellion against the dehumanizing grind. Folklore and ghost stories about haunted merchant ships or strange taps on the hull circulate quietly below deck. Whether believed literally or not, these narratives serve as a shared framework for processing the pervasive trauma and uncertainty of your existence. They offer a way to articulate the ineffable, to give form to the formless fears that haunt your waking hours and infiltrate your dreams. A strange creak is not just a settling beam, it's the ghost of a drowned sailor. A distant tap is not just the sea, it's a warning. These stories, passed in hushed tones, become a communal way to grapple with the overwhelming unknown, allowing you to share and manage the psychological weight of your situation without directly confronting its brutal reality, a shared narrative of dread. In the rare quiet moments, the shaky notes of a harmonica or the faint off-key singing of a gospel song offer brief moments of fragile humanity. These are poignant contrast to the ship's constant mechanical groans and the oppressive silence of the sea, which so often feels like a prelude to danger. The music, however imperfect, is a sound of life, a defiant whisper of beauty and hope against the backdrop of war. It's a reminder of the world you left behind, the culture that shaped you, and the inner spirit that still yearns for something beyond mere survival. These small acts of artistic expression are like tiny flickering candles in the overwhelming darkness, precious and profoundly affecting a beacon of persistent humanity. These fragile human expressions are often intertwined with deeper spiritual frameworks and superstitions as you constantly grapple with the profound unknown that defines your existence on the North Atlantic. The line between what is real and what is imagined, between the natural and the supernatural, blurs in the face of such overwhelming existential threat. Your logical mind might resist, but your deeper self battered by the ocean, and the unseen enemy seeks comfort and meaning wherever it can be found. You, along with your shipmates, operate under a profound sense of fatalism, a deep-seated belief that destiny rather than individual action holds the ultimate sway. There's an ingrained understanding that the ocean plays tricks, that it's a living, deceptive entity. Every shape on the horizon feels like an omen, a sign either good or ill sent by forces beyond human comprehension. This fatalism shapes your vigilance and reactions to the unknown, adding a layer of primal, almost ancient dread to the technological warfare you engage in. You scan the horizon not just for periscopes, but for signs, for portents, for anything that might offer a clue to your ultimate fate in this immense indifferent theatre, a constant search for meaning in the chaos. The persistent presence and unusual behaviour of gulls are deeply ingrained in sailor lore as direct omens of impending death or past loss. Their cries seem to carry a mournful quality, their circling above the convoy a chilling premonition. You find yourself fostering a primal fear and hyper-awareness of these avian companions, observing their flight patterns, their landing spots, seeking to decipher their silent messages. Are they simply following the ships for scraps, or are they harbingers of doom flocking to where the sea will soon claim more lives? This ancient superstition adds a layer of eerie atmospheric tension to the already strained environment, making you question the very nature of the creatures that share your sky. Personal charms become ubiquitous. Rosary beads clutched in a numb hand during a heavy storm, a lucky rabbit's foot worn smooth in a pocket, or crosses hastily drawn on bulkhead walls. These are commonplace. They reflect a blend of traditional religious belief and practical superstition, a desperate means of protection against the arbitrary brutality of war and nature. These small tokens are more than mere objects. They're conduits of hope, symbols of a desperate plea for intervention, a small comfort in the face of overwhelming odds. You might scoff at them in peacetime, but here in the cold, unforgiving Atlantic, you find yourself seeking solace in any form, no matter how irrational a desperate reach for something beyond your grasp. The sea itself is often personified as a conscious deceptive entity that likes to lie, or plays tricks. This reinforces a deep distrust and continuous hyper-awareness of its subtle and often malevolent changes. A sudden calm might be more terrifying than a raging storm, a placid surface hiding unseen horrors below. The waves, the currents, the shifting mists, they all seem to conspire against you, creating illusions, masking dangers, lulling you into a false sense of security before revealing its true destructive power. This personification of the ocean transforms it from a mere setting into an active, intelligent adversary, making your battle not just against the elements, but against a cunning, primordial intelligence, a battle with the very spirit of the sea. The belief that, if you name it, you give it power, governs how crew members subtly communicate about potential U-boat sightings. This isn't just about discretion. It's a shared, almost ritualistic approach to warding off danger through silence. You avoid explicit declarations using veiled phrases, coded glances, or a quiet knowing nod. It's a way of acknowledging the threat without verbally empowering it, a communal superstition that binds you all in a delicate dance of fear and magical thinking. The unspoken understanding of this rule creates a tense, almost psychic communication among shipmates where fear is acknowledged through its deliberate absence in speech, a silent pact against the unknown. Amidst these superstitions and the constant struggle for survival, your memories of love, marriage, and family life become more than just recollections. They transform into precious lifelines, tenuous connections to a world of warmth and normalcy you fear you may never see again. These are the threads that anchor you, however tenuously, to your past, to your future, to the very concept of peace, a fragile bridge over a sea of despair. You find yourself clinging to fragmented memories of home, small precious shards of a life left behind. It might be a dog-eared sketch of a woman's face, maybe a wife, maybe a memory. Tucked carefully into your pocket, its lines softened by constant handling. Or perhaps a faded photograph, carefully hidden in a survival kit, its edges worn smooth, depicting a family gathered on a sunny porch, or children playing in a yard. These images represent your lifeline to a different peaceful reality, a stark contrast to the relentless grey and the pervasive threat that define your present. They are not just pictures, they are anchors, mental tethers to the world you fight for, a constant reminder of what awaits, or what you hope awaits, should you survive this ordeal, a whisper of a life beyond the sea. The profound inability of you, a US sailor, to communicate your brutal reality to loved ones ashore is a deeply isolating experience. You struggle to write letters home, the words catching in your throat, the pen hovering over the blank page. There's nothing to say that wouldn't scare her, referring to a wife, a mother, a sweetheart. How do you describe the bone-chilling cold that never leaves your body, the constant fear of an unseen enemy, these screams of men vanishing into the waves without shattering the carefully constructed piece of their lives ashore? You simply can't. To truly articulate your daily horrors would be to inflict your trauma upon them, to shatter their carefully constructed piece. This creates an unbridgeable emotional chasm, a silent burden you carry, separating you from the very people you are fighting to protect. You are alone in your experience, even in a crowded mess hall, even on a busy deck, a solitary figure adrift in your own suffering. The stark contrast between your returning self and the world ashore is palpable, a jarring re-entry into a reality that feels alien. When you finally reach port, you see men in clean uniforms waving you in, men who appear untouched by the horrors you've endured. You, by comparison, feel ancient, your eyes holding 1,000 unspoken stories, your body bearing the scars of relentless battle. They are clean, their faces fresh, their uniforms crisp, embodying a world that has continued without you, pristine and unaware of the price paid for its peace. This emphasizes the isolating nature of your traumatic experience, the understanding that you've been to a place emotionally and physically that they can never truly comprehend. The gap between your reality and theirs is a heavy invisible weight you carry, a silent chasm. Dreams of domesticity, those fragile hopes for a future surface in your sleep, often tinged with the trauma of loss. You might share Red's vision of the crew at a baseball game, with families, a scene of idyllic normalcy, children laughing, the sun warm on your face. But even these dreams are not safe. They're often corrupted by the pervasive fear. In Red's dream, the loved ones disappeared when he looked away, a chilling reminder of the arbitrary nature of loss and the ever-present threat to everything you hold dear. These dreams are both a solace and a torment, a vision of what could be constantly overshadowed by the knowledge of what has been lost and what could still be lost, a bittersweet whisper of what might have been. The poignant discovery of an old survival kit with a faded photograph hidden on a lifeboat is a moment that resonates deeply. It's a small, intimate window into another man's life, another man's hopes. You and your crewmates ponder its meaning. Maybe someone thought they'd need it. Maybe they didn't make it back. This small, silent tableau speaks volumes about personal lives, about dreams and promises that were never fulfilled. It's a chilling reminder of the individual tragedies that make up the vast tapestry of war, a personal loss hidden within the larger strategic narrative. The empty raft, the faded photo, their silent eulogies, testaments to the fragility of life and the brutal finality of the North Atlantic, a lonely monument to vanished hope. This silent language, these shared superstitions and the poignant echoes of home form the social fabric that against all odds endures. It is within this fragile human connection that you find moments of respite, brief glimmers of hope and sanity in an otherwise bleak existence. But even these connections are constantly challenged, constantly tested by the relentless demands of the environment and the ever-present threat of the German U-boats, who continue their unseen dance of death. Beneath the waves, a silent ballet of predator and prey. The relentless German U-boats, ever present but rarely seen, continue their unseen dance of death, beneath the waves shaping every aspect of your existence. You understand that the enemy is often perceived as a ghost with teeth, a spectral menace that instills a profound sense of awe and terror. It's not merely their destructive capability that chills you to the bone, but their elusive, almost supernatural nature. They are there, you know it, but you rarely see them until it's too late. This invisible quality elevates them beyond mere machines of war, turning them into a primal fear, a force of nature as terrifying as the ocean itself. You are hunting and being hunted by phantoms, a constant psychological drain that leaves you perpetually on edge, always scanning the depths for a shadow. From the chilling perspective of a periscope, your own ship is reduced to just a silhouette, a name, a shape, nothing human. This reduction to an abstract target, devoid of the living souls within, reflects the impersonal and dehumanizing reality of being a target in technologically advanced warfare. To the U-boat crew, your vessel is simply a strategic objective, a means to an end, a symbol of the enemy, rather than a carrier of human lives. This cold detachment is a mirror of the very dehumanization you feel when confronting the wreckage of a sunken merchant ship. Both sides in this grim struggle reduce the other to abstract concepts, making the act of destruction less personal, yet no less devastating in its consequences, a chilling game of chess with human pieces. The enemy's calculated patience is a particularly terrifying aspect of their strategy. U-boats are described as waiting for a ship to fall out of line, or waiting for someone to blink. This isn't brute force. It's a cunning, strategic approach to their relentless hunting, a chilling patience that preys on human error exhaustion, and the inevitable moments of vulnerability within a convoy, they are not merely striking at random. They're observing, calculating, and waiting for the precise moment to exploit a weakness. This knowledge adds another insidious layer of psychological pressure, making every moment of quiet, every lull in the storm, a period of agonizing anticipation, knowing that unseen eyes might be watching, waiting for your resolve to falter. The persistent debate over sonar's reliability, was it cutting-edge detection or just a false sense of safety, reveals the inherent limitations of technology against an unseen enemy and the unpredictable moods of the North Atlantic. Sonar pings are your primary tool, your ears in the vast dark depths, but they are not infallible. Phantom contacts, echoes from marine life, or underwater topography frequently cause false alarms, draining your resources and your nerves. You rely on the technology, but you never fully trust it, always aware of its fallibility, always wondering if the machine is truly showing you the truth or merely playing its own tricks, much like the ocean itself. This technological uncertainty only deepens the pervasive sense of unease and vulnerability, leaving you to constantly second-guess your perceptions. Rumours of advanced enemy intelligence further amplify the sense of being constantly observed and outmanoeuvred by a sophisticated opponent. Whispers of 12 confirmed, convoy under watch, or long-range spotters, planes, submarine relays circulate among the crew. These tales, whether grounded in fact or amplified by fear, suggest that the enemy isn't merely reacting to your presence. They're planning, coordinating, possessing an eerie foreknowledge of your movements. This perception of superior enemy intelligence amplifies the feeling of being relentlessly hunted, of being utterly exposed in a game where the opponent seems to hold an unfair advantage. It adds another layer of hopelessness, a sense that your every move is anticipated, your every defense already countered before it's even fully implemented. A truly chilling thought, like playing chess against a master who sees every move. Rare, fleeting visual confirmations of the enemy, however, brief offer terrifyingly vivid glimpses of the unseen, shattering the abstract dread and replacing it with concrete, terrifying images. A sleek, dark silhouette gliding just beneath the surface, a brief, shadowy form cutting through the waves, or the glint of a thin metal rod cutting through the waves, the unmistakable glint of a periscope. These are moments of stark, undeniable reality, confirming your deepest fears, materializing the phantom, and then as quickly as they appear, they vanish again. These terrifyingly brief sightings are etched into your memory, providing a concrete image to your abstract dread, a momentary chilling face to the ghost with teeth. A stark reminder of the ultimate predator that silently patrols these frigid waters. Now, having immersed yourself in the stark realities of your daily life, the rigid structures and the pervasive threat, it's time to briefly revisit the foundational realities and overarching structure that define your existence in the North Atlantic. These are the immutable forces, both human-made and natural, that dictate the very terms of your struggle and survival. You're not just reacting to isolated incidents. You're operating within a grand, terrifying system, a living part of its intricate, often brutal mechanics. Your personal narrative, as compelling as it is ultimately shaped by these vast impersonal currents. Beyond the raw personal struggles of daily life, you the sailor navigate a world shaped by broader, immutable structures and relentless environmental forces. These dictate the very terms of your existence in the North Atlantic. You're a part of a much larger narrative, a narrative written in steel and waves in strategy and sacrifice. The individual struggle, as intense as it is always framed by these colossal impersonal forces, reminding you of your place within the grand, terrifying scheme of things. Your personal reality is inextricably linked to these overarching conditions, a small vessel in a storm of global conflict. The convoy itself represents an unbreakable hierarchy of purpose, a slow-churning beast made of steel and strategy. It is an enormous, unwieldy organism, a floating city of steel moving at the pace of its slowest member. Its very existence is a testament to the collective will, but also to its inherent vulnerability. You are intimately aware that the numerous merchant vessels heavy with their vital cargo are entirely dependent on the smaller, faster escort ships like yours for their very survival. You're the fangs and claws of this beast, its only defense against the predators lurking in the dark. This constant awareness of your protective role defines your every waking moment and infuses your every action with immense responsibility, a silent, heavy oath. The fundamental purpose of this vast convoy system is to maintain the vital lifelines between America and Europe. You understand this in your gut. It's not abstract political theory. You're physically ensuring the flow of critical oil tankers and ammunition freighters that are essential for the war effort. Without this constant stream of supplies, the war would simply cease. Your cold, tired hands are directly contributing to the sustenance of a continent-wide struggle. This knowledge establishes the dire necessity of the operation, making every lost ship, every lost life, a tangible blow to the collective effort. The stakes are immense, and you carry that weight with every patrol, a silent guardian of destiny. Within this vast military machine, you, the individual sailor, are acutely aware of your fixed, albeit often vague, role. You're part of a skeleton crew keeping them safe, a small force stretched thin across a colossal undertaking. Your duties are specific, often repetitive, but always critical. Your orders are immediate and unquestioning, issued from the brass. Those distant, unseen figures whose decisions ripple down through the chain of command shaping your every movement. You don't need to understand the full strategic picture. You simply need to execute your part flawlessly, trusting that the broader plan, however opaque, serves a necessary and vital purpose. This hierarchy, this unwavering chain of command, is as much a part of the ship's structure as its steel bulkheads a rigid framework of command and obedience. The sheer scale of the convoy, dozens of ships stretching into the mist, emphasizes your individual insignificance within the broader strategic enterprise. You're a single face among thousands, a tiny solitary point in a moving ocean of steel. This scale can be both terrifying and paradoxically a source of grim comfort as you share a common fate with so many others. But it also reinforces the brutal reality that you are a cog in a massive vulnerable machine. And while your loss would be tragic, the machine itself would continue driven by the relentless demands of war, a relentless, impersonal march. The inherent fragility of the supply chain is starkly evident in the merchant ships you're sworn to protect. Many of these vessels are old, often rusted into barely floating bathtubs, that by all accounts barely survived World War I. Their age and condition make them painfully vulnerable, slow and often poorly armed, placing immense pressure on escorts like yours. You look at them wallowing in the swell, sometimes listing slightly, and you know their weakness. Their very presence underscores the immense challenge of your task, and highlights the critical importance of your role. Every watchful eye, every accurate sonar ping, every well-placed depth charge is crucial to keeping these anachronistic vessels laden with modern war materials afloat. The captain, that quiet man with silvering hair, embodies the absolute authority and immense weight of command. His decisions are not just about navigation. They are life or death pronouncements made in the grim silence of the bridge. You've heard the stories and perhaps even witnessed the implementation of policies like do not retrieve lost sailors. This isn't a lack of compassion, but a cold, hard calculus of wartime survival. Stopping for a single man would expose the entire convoy to the very U-boats you're trying to evade. His quiet demeanor belies the immense burden he carries, making choices that reflect the brutal priorities of this theatre of war, where individual lives are sometimes sacrificed for the greater strategic good, a chilling necessity of conflict. This world is ultimately defined by a core economy and resource management based on scarcity. You operate on an economy of sheer survival, where precious resources are not currency, but essential commodities, food rations, fuel for the engines, and critically depth charges. All are strictly controlled and frighteningly finite. Every canister of beans, every drop of oil, every expensive firecracker is accounted for with meticulous precision, allocated based on desperate need. This isn't a world of abundance or comfort. It's a world where every single item has a profound life or death value, and waste is not just frowned upon but potentially catastrophic for the entire mission, a harsh lesson in frugality. The strategic and material value of the convoy's cargo, primarily oil and ammunition, renders the merchant ships juicy clusters of concentrated targets. You look at them slow and heavy in the water, and you see not just vessels but immense floating bombs waiting for a spark. This inherent vulnerability, this concentrated value, is what actively drives the relentless U-boat threat, shaping all tactical decisions. The enemy isn't just looking for ships, they're looking for the vital organs of the Allied war effort, and you are positioned right in the heart of that vulnerability, a silent vital shield, a small barrier against massive destruction. Depth charges, those expensive firecrackers, are a particularly potent symbol of this resource scarcity. They are a limited and vital commodity requiring careful deployment and underscoring the critical decision-making needed to avoid waste or unintended consequences. You cannot simply drop them indiscriminately. Each one represents a significant investment, a finite weapon that must be used with precision and purpose. The concussive thud of one exploding a deep rumble that vibrates through the hull is a stark reminder of their power and their scarcity. You know that if you expend them needlessly, when the true attack comes, you might have nothing left to defend yourself or the convoy, with leaving you utterly exposed, a terrifying thought in the vastness. Food reduced to powdered mystery and canned beans is a basic but equally precious ration. It's consumed for sheer physical function, rather than enjoyment, symbolizing the austere and deprived conditions of life at sea. You eat to survive, to maintain enough energy to perform your duties, not for pleasure or comfort. The taste and texture are secondary to the caloric intake, a stark reminder of how far removed your current existence is from the luxuries and abundances of home. Every spoonful, every bite is a utilitarian act, a contribution to your continued survival in this unforgiving environment, a testament to the fact that even the most basic human needs are rationed and controlled, a grim echo of the wider war, a constant battle against hunger. Beyond the scarcity of material supplies, the economy of human endurance is perhaps the most profoundly finite resource on offer. You and your shipmates lack the emotional and physical energy for internal conflict, for petty squabbles, or for anything that doesn't directly contribute to immediate survival. The luxury of discord is simply unaffordable. Basic necessities like dry warmth and adequate sleep become unattainable luxuries, signifying your profound physical and mental depletion. Your reserves are constantly being drawn upon, rarely replenished, leaving you in a perpetual state of deficit. The very concept of extra energy, whether physical or emotional, is an alien one in this environment. You exist in a state of constant low-grade exhaustion, pushing your body and mind to limits you never knew existed, a living embodiment of the war's relentless, insatiable demands on every fibre of your being. And then, as always, there is nature's relentless fury, the ocean itself as the ultimate adversary. The North Atlantic is portrayed not merely as a setting, but as a malevolent, sentient adversary, a vast, merciless stretch of water that growled, then hissed, its icy spite feeling unnervingly personal. You feel this personification deep in your bones, a constant chilling presence. This isn't just weather. It's a force with intent actively working against your survival, testing your resolve, seeking to claim you for its frigid depths. The ocean in its vastness and indifference becomes as much an enemy as any U-boat, its power constant and inescapable, a silent, eternal antagonist. The pervasive deep cold acts as a constant tormentor and omnipresent force that defines your every waking moment. Described as colder than outer space, you can almost believe it. Tears freeze instantly to your cheeks, turning to tiny shards of ice that prickle and sting. Your breath fogs so thickly it looks like smoke billowing out in dense white clouds, with every exhalation a vivid visual manifestation of the extreme conditions. This cold relentlessly penetrates every layer of clothing, seeping past the thick wool, past your skin, right into your bones, posing a continuous threat of hypothermia for you and your fellow US sailors. It's a slow, insidious killer that can incapacitate as surely as a torpedo, and you're in a constant low-level fight against it, a battle to retain even a sliver of body heat, a never-ending struggle against the encroaching frost. The sea's unpredictable and violent motion is another relentless assailant. The ship is constantly bucking, twisting in long, angry arcs, rising and falling with sickening irregularity. Waves smash across the bow, with the force of a battering ram sending spray high into the air, drenching everything in an instant. Other times the waves are smaller but just as menacing, lapping at the hull, with a sinister whispering sound that seems to promise eventual breach. This ceaseless violent motion makes movement treacherous. Every step is a deliberate act of bracing, of finding your sea legs in a world that never stays still. Your muscles ache constantly from the effort your body forever adjusting to the ocean's chaotic dance, leaving you perpetually off balance both physically and mentally, a constant fight for equilibrium. Environmental conditions conspire to deepen the sense of isolation and vulnerability. Near total darkness, thick fog, and haze are common companions, especially during moonless nights. These conditions severely restrict visibility, transforming the convoy into a ghost parade, a procession of dark silhouettes that appear and disappear in the swirling mists. You strain your eyes trying to pierce the gloom, but the world around you becomes a blur of indistinguishable shapes, enhancing the sense of being utterly alone and exposed. The lack of clear sight lines makes the U-boat threat even more terrifying, turning the enemy into an invisible, ubiquitous menace that could strike from any direction at any moment without warning, further eroding your sense of safety. Storms, when they arrive, are not just weather events. They're amplifications of your worst fears, pushing the ship and its crew to their absolute limits. Rain pelting the deck in heavy stinging sheets reduces visibility to mere feet, turning the exposed decks into slick, dangerous traps. Winds howl through the rigging with a banshee shriek, ripping at your clothes, threatening to tear them from your body. The sheer force of the storm makes the very ship feel as if it's coming apart at the seams, groaning and shuddering under the immense stress. These aren't just physical challenges. They amplify the psychological toll, turning the familiar vessel into a terrifying fragile shell that seems perpetually on the verge of splintering beneath you, a world teetering on the edge of destruction. Perhaps most chilling of all is the ocean's ultimate indifference. It doesn't care about human suffering or fear about the lives it claims or the convoys it protects. It is an immutable, constant presence that, once you're gone, a force of nature that existed long before you and will continue long after. Its occasional stillness, those moments of eerie calm after a storm, often proves more unnerving than its rage, a deceptive placidness that hides its true destructive power. You learn to respect this indifference, to fear it, and to understand that your survival is a temporary negotiation with a force that ultimately seeks to erase all traces of your passage. This understanding underscores your profound vulnerability and the constant silent battle for existence on the North Atlantic, a lonely defiance against an ancient indifferent power. The emotional and psychological impact of this battle with the elements is profound, blurring the lines between external threat and internal turmoil. The relentless cold isn't just a physical sensation, it's a mental one, chilling your resolve. The constant movement of the ship creates a perpetual nausea that drains your energy and your will. The endless grey horizon, unbroken by land, begins to feel like a visual representation of your own despair, an endless void that stretches into infinity. You learn to steel yourself against these forces, to build mental walls, but the attrition is constant, slowly chipping away at your resilience, leaving you raw and exposed to the deep, silent anxieties that permeate your every waking moment like a slowly eroding coastline. This constant environmental assault shapes every aspect of your perception. Every shadow becomes a potential U-boat, every creak of the hull a signal of imminent danger. Your senses are heightened, perpetually on alert, but also prone to deception, exhausted by the relentless strain. The very air you breathe feels heavy with salt and dread, a constant reminder of the hostile world you inhabit. You find yourself seeking brief, fleeting moments of quiet observation, watching the patterns of the waves, the flight of a lone seabird, anything to ground yourself in a reality that feels increasingly surreal and detached from the world you once knew, a desperate attempt to find an anchor in the storm. The interplay between the natural environment and the man-made conflict creates a unique form of hell. The U-boats exploit the very conditions that make your life so miserable, the storms that scatter, convoys the fog that hides their approach, the cold that slowly weakens your body and mind. It's a cruel synergy where nature's fury acts as an unwitting accomplice to the enemy's destructive intent. You understand that you are fighting on two fronts simultaneously, one visible and one invisible, one human and one primordial, and that each constantly exacerbates the challenges of the other. There is no respite, no safe haven, only the constant grinding battle against an unforgiving world, a relentless dual assault on your very being. In this struggle, even the smallest moments of beauty or calm feel like a trick, a momentary reprieve before the inevitable return to chaos. A rare, clear sky, a brief glimpse of a sunrise that paints the clouds in muted colours, a moment where the sea lies unnervingly still, these are not truly peaceful. Instead, they heighten your anxiety, making you suspicious, waiting for the other shoe to drop. You've learned that in the North Atlantic, true peace is an illusion, a dangerous fantasy. Its occasional stillness often proves more unnerving than its rage, a deceptive placidness that hides its true destructive power, making you wary of any comfort offered by the environment, always anticipating the next blow. This deep understanding of the ocean as an ultimate adversary, combined with the relentless human conflict, shapes your philosophy of survival. You become a pragmatist, stripped bare of illusions, focused solely on the immediate tasks, the next watch, the next meal, the next moment of vigilance. The grand narratives of war fade, replaced by the stark, visceral reality of your own endurance against forces that seek your annihilation. This fight is not just for victory, but for existence itself, for the simple, profound act of making it through another day in the unforgiving embrace of the North Atlantic. Now let's circle back to the core principles and stylistic requirements that guide our narrative here on Boring History for Sleep. Remember, the goal is always to deliver this deep dive into history with a calming and soothing atmosphere, even when describing grim realities. We aim for a measured, steady and unhurried pace, feeling like a comforting conversation with a knowledgeable friend, allowing your mind to gently engage or softly drift. Even when confronting the starkest truths of life on the North Atlantic, the focus remains on the human experience and its consequences, observed through a lens of detached contemplation rather than sensationalism, like a quiet observer of a grand ancient drama. The intimate and deeply immersive second-person perspective is paramount. You, the reader, are always the protagonist in this historical journey. Every description, every sensation, every observation is filtered through your experience. You find yourself. You quickly learn. You feel the chill. You recognize the pattern. This isn't merely frequent direct address, it's the primary and overarching narrative voice for all descriptive and narrative content. This helps place you directly within the historical scenario, making the past feel immediate and personal, guided by a narrator whose own detached wit and insights are expressed through this you perspective. It's an approach designed to draw you in, not to simply tell you a story, but to allow you to experience it, albeit from the safety of your own comfortable space, a gentle guide through history. We meticulously adhere to the outline, expanding on every segment and content point provided without skipping any. This ensures a comprehensive exploration, building layer upon layer of understanding. However, we also make sure to intelligently supplement and strategically expand the content, especially in these later sections, to reach our target length, without ever feeling long-winded or repetitive. Early sections were concise and direct, hooking your interest. Now we delve into deeper details, exploring subtopics, cultural implications, and the nuances of daily existence, with greater depth, enriching the narrative rather than just filling space, like slowly unfurling an ancient map. To maintain engagement and length, we deepen sensory and environmental details. We don't just say it was cold, we talk about tears that freeze to your cheekbones, and breath that fogs so thick it looks like smoke. We aim to immerse you in the raw, uncomfortable, historically authentic, unpleasant details, making the historical reality feel immediate and visceral, yet always remaining observational in tone. This includes the pervasive dampness, the smells of stale tobacco and mechanical grease, and the constant physical aches that become a part of your being. These details are designed to create a vivid picture without being jarring, to allow your imagination to construct the scene without demanding hyper-alertness, a gentle painting of the past. We broaden contextual exploration, placing events and concepts within a wider historical, social and psychological framework. We might explore the immediate consequences of a decision or the long-term impact of constant stress on the human psyche. We also integrate specific examples and micro-narratives, brief compelling anecdotes that illustrate broader points, or offer poignant scenes like the discovery of a faded photograph in an old survival kit. These small stories show, rather than tell, adding emotional resonance without disrupting the calming flow like brief poignant notes in a historical symphony. Crucially, we master the art of understated wit and relatable comparisons. We interject subtle, dry humour, ironic juxtapositions and absurd modern-day parallels. This isn't about outright comedy, but about small knowing asides that make the past feel less alien and more a mirror of enduring human experiences. For instance, the observation that the captain's "do not retrieve" policy reflects the cold calculus of wartime survival is a grim truth delivered with a detached, almost ironic wit, or the idea that your thin bacon could serve as a bookmark. These comparisons, always grounded in historical context, provide observational rather than purely comedic effect, often stemming from the inherent absurdity or impracticality of historical customs, or the ironic contrast between romanticized portrayals and grim realities, a gentle chuckle in the face of history's often serious demeanor. To ensure this journey remains both informative and gently engaging, we prioritize conversational and approachable language. You won't find overly academic jargon or obscure terminology here, nor convoluted sentence structures that might demand too much mental effort. The language flows naturally, as if a well-spoken, intelligent friend is simply sharing a fascinating historical account with you over a quiet cup of tea. We use vocabulary that is sophisticated enough to be engaging but remains entirely accessible to a broad general audience. The goal is always clarity and relatability, making sure that even complex historical facts and analyses are woven into your experience or presented in a conversational, digestible manner rather than as dry academic statements. We want you to feel like you're part of the conversation, not listening to a lecture, a gentle, understanding voice guiding you. We also intentionally integrate subtle conversational intrusions. These are brief, casual interjections that give the narrator a distinct, friendly personality without ever being overly engaging or distracting. Phrases like, "You know what I mean," "Think about it for a moment," or "Trust me," are woven naturally into the narrative. They are key to establishing that YouTube-style personal connection, creating a sense of intimacy and shared experience, a quiet companion guiding you through the historical landscape. These little nudges are designed to make you feel comfortable and connected even as your mind begins to drift, ensuring the narration feels like a gentle, reassuring presence, a comforting whisper from the past. Perhaps one of the most critical aspects, especially given the grim realities of history, is our approach to handling grim or bloody content. We acknowledge these realities because history often involves violence, disease, and suffering, and to ignore them would be to misrepresent the past. However, we strictly avoid gore or sensationalism. The focus is always on the consequences and the experience, not on graphic details. We describe the impact of bloodshed or suffering, the psychological toll, the profound loss, the altered landscapes, rather than specific highly visual or visceral descriptions. For instance, we might speak of lives brutally cut short, or disease sweeping through the population, allowing the implication to carry the weight without disturbing your calm, a respectful acknowledgement of hardship. The narrator's tone must remain calm, factual, and slightly distant, even when describing difficult subjects. There's no emotional language, no gasps of horror, no sensationalism. Instead, it's a detached observational approach that allows you to absorb the gravity of the past without being overwhelmed by it. When necessary, we subtly use euphemism and metaphor to convey grimness without being explicit, softening the edges of harsh truths without diminishing their historical significance. This balance is crucial. We interweave these grim details with other aspects of daily life, culture, or historical context to ensure the segment doesn't become overwhelmingly negative or disturbing, maintaining that essential calming tone, a steady hand guiding you through the shadows. This careful balancing act, these deliberate choices in tone, perspective, and language, are all designed to create a unique narrative space. A space where history can be explored in depth, where the human condition in its most challenging forms can be understood, and where, despite the inherent drama of the past, your mind can find a path to relaxation. We guide you through the North Atlantic of 1943, not to agitate, but to illuminate, to help you understand the quiet courage and immense endurance of those who lived through it. And as we bring our journey through this particular chapter of history to a close, you can slowly begin to feel the echoes of the past gently recede, leaving behind only the quiet hum of your own present comfort. As the echoes of the North Atlantic slowly fade and the stories of the sailors, the ships, and the unforgiving sea gently recede into the quiet corners of your mind, allow yourself to drift back to the warmth and safety of your own space. You've walked the decks of an escort ship, felt the biting cold, tasted the fear, and witnessed the immense fortitude of those who navigated a world of scarcity and relentless threat. Now let those heavy images dissolve, replaced by the soft glow of your bedside lamp or the comforting darkness of your room. The creaking of the hull, the distant thud of depth charges the persistent dampness. All of it belongs to a past that is now safely behind us. You're here now, warm and secure, far from the icy grasp of the ocean. Feel the weight of your own comfortable blankets, the soft pillow beneath your head. The men and women of 1943 faced hardships we can scarcely imagine, enduring conditions that would break the strongest of wills. But their story, their quiet strength has been told, and with its telling, peace can now descend. Let your breathing deepen, your muscles relax, and your thoughts grow lighter, like clouds drifting across a calm evening sky. The journey is complete. The history has been shared, and all that remains is the promise of restful sleep, a gentle descent into slumber